Hey there, Fellowship family. Welcome to your one-stop shop for all things church life. My name's Mark Francis, and I'm once again your host for today. We have a special episode for you today. We've continually talking about this series called Overflow. And overflow to us really means that God has poured his love into our hearts so then we can overflow to others around us. And if you remember, our episodes have started with that theme begins in the home. Parents, grandparents, kids, we all should be doing that to one another in the home. Then that carries out into our local church, how we can engage with those in our own local body. And here we are in a special week called the Global Church Week. And that overflow should carry out to the world around us in the global church, because there are believers all around our community, all around our world, and all around, I mean, you name it. You can see Christ in pretty much any country. And so it's neat that we have visitors from all around the world in our community this week to participate and engage in the Global Church Week. So we have with us a couple from Ecuador, and I'm really excited to hear from you guys. We have Juan and Tirsa Delgado. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Good,
Thank you for having us.
Yes, we're so excited to have you here, and I know you're here for a couple weeks, so you're getting a good chance to get plugged into our church here, and you've always been a part of our church, and we're going to hear your story. But we also have, over to my right, Jim Poole. You are a missions pastor here at FBC.
Yep.
How are you, Jim?
Doing good.
Good. And I'll just ask you first, because you and Scott McManigal were on the stage this past week, and we got a chance to hear the heart of why FBC does what they do. In a quick nutshell, like, what are you guys, what are you all about for our FBC missions department?
Yeah, well, a quick nutshell is that we're all about trying to clarify the gospel. And specifically, that's what we talked about this week on our sermon. Just the importance of the clear gospel, the concise gospel, the pure gospel. And so for us, it really centers around a lot of teaching. And we help with some humanitarian needs and physical needs as well. But really, it's about the physical teaching or spiritual teaching of the Word of God. And just wanting to communicate those spiritual truths as clear and concise as we possibly can. It comes out of the content of the teaching.
And really equipping the local church.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, not just deploying missionaries and then having them work in a certain mission field for a year.
Right.
But working and partnering with local people.
Sure.
And that's where the Delgados come into play.
Yep.
Yes. Because I want to hear a little bit about your story, you guys, of how you came. First of all, I want to know you guys. So how did you guys meet? Because I think there's an interesting story there. So Juan, I'm going to just let you share kind of how you came to meet Tirsa.
The first time we met was playing basketball in Cuenca, Ecuador.
Okay.
She went there to visit her grandmother, and I was getting ready to leave to seminary. And some mutual friends from the church invited us to play basketball. And I used to play basketball in high school, and she was really good at basketball in high school too.
So who won?
I was winning.
We played different positions. Played different positions.
Okay.
And then she sent her brother to kind of like push me a little bit. But
yeah, that's when we first met.
That's when we met.
Meeting on the basketball court. Wow.
Nothing happened or anything happened after 8 years,
Wow. So you met on the basketball court, but then it was a long process. So you said you were going to seminary.
I was going to seminary, and at seminary, which was in South Texas, in Rio Grande Bible Institute.
Okay.
I was connected with her family because my father-in-law, Wilson Campoverde, he kind of like helped me to get there or gave me the papers. But their family adopted me right away. There's a lot of mercy there. And I always liked her, but I couldn't say like anything because this was my friend, and I couldn't say anything, and I didn't want to pursue anything just because of that. And she was going away too for university, and I was studying. So
So there's a long gap there. Jim, I'll turn to you. Juan mentioned Wilson Campaverde. That's someone who we've had a partnership with for many years, and there's a family connection there. But how did that connection with Wilson then help with our connection with Juan?
Sure. Yeah. Well, obviously, Tirsa's Wilson's daughter.
Yeah.
And so she's been coming here since she was a little girl, like a long time ago. So she's actually...
Like 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years. And so, so then Wilson introduced us to Juan, and Juan was in seminary at that time and graduated. And then, we just saw the Lord working with Juan and got to know him before he was married, before, you guys were married. And so, man, he was a young guy coming out of seminary that, wanted to go back to his home country, to Ecuador, and, be used by the Lord to see, God was going to do, had a heart to, plant and establish, churches in his own home country.
Yeah.
And so, boy, that was a perfect match for us.
Really linking up with the same idea of the vision that you were saying, of
absolutely.
How equipping the local church, not just sending a missionary, but working with somebody from there. So Tirsa, now I got to hear the rest of the story. So you met on the basketball court.
Yes.
And then
I was
years
in high
go by.
school. I was in high school. Juan was going to seminary. So at that time, the age difference was, I guess, more noteworthy. And I never in my mind would I have said I was going to marry a Latin man. Like that was not what I thought I liked. So then you fast forward, you all will remember my dad got really sick.
Yep.
He had a brain aneurysm. And so while Dad was sick, Juan was kind of our liaison with not only the church in Cuenca, but our family. This was back when there was only Skype, so we couldn't do WhatsApp calls or Messenger. And so we would Skype call or we would be in touch via email. And he would relay information to the church in Cuenca. And so we kind of reconnected. And it's actually very funny. I don't want to embarrass my husband, but so we would be just talking about the situation with Dad. And there was one day in particular that I was like, okay, Juan, we'll talk later. And he's like, okay, I love you. And then we hung up the call.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know that he really meant hey, I like you. And so all this stuff came up later, but that's how we reconnected. And I was out of school at that time. And I was also just kind of praying about what would the Lord have me do. And I was thinking about moving to Ecuador and just taking a year off of work and, just living and supporting the work that the church was doing in Cuenca. But I didn't realize it would be permanent. I've been in Cuenca for 10 years now. So, I changed my address and we got married, and the Lord has us working with the church in Cuenca and the Quichuas.
And you are fluent in Spanish also.
Yeah.
So it helps with the culture, and you've been around the Latin culture, and obviously there's a connection there with now you and Juan have this partnership of doing ministry together. So I want to hear really kind of the heartbeat of, so once you guys have then settled and you're planted in Cuenca, what went into building and equipping and establishing a church there?
Well, I was already working there as a pastor for probably 4 years before that. And we started... the reason why I went down to Ecuador was because I wanted to support the church where I got to know the Lord when I was 17. And there were several men that wanted to study, but God opened up the doors for me to go to study, and I finished, and then I wanted to go back and help. So I did. In the meantime, while I was in seminary, God opened up my eyes and my heart to grace, and when I came back to share that, but in the meantime, also at the church that I was at, they kind of started rejecting the message of grace. So when I went back, there was this rejection of the message that I didn't know that. So it came to a point that I had to leave. I had to leave the church and start studying at my house by myself. And my parents came along, and then other families reached to me to study and start studying on Tuesdays, and that's how it started. But
It's almost like a home church, just a few
it was
people.
just a Bible study.
Yep.
Just a Bible study, and I started since the beginning with what the book that we called Creation to Christ, and this is a side note, but I used to pray for a wife, and
Sure.
or just pray for studying for the lesson, and here it comes Tirsa coming to my mind. I didn't have no clue I have no clue at all, because I was single, living with my parents, and with no money, and yeah, God was working all of that out. But that's how it started for 4 years. The church, how God did it, and
So fast forward a little bit to where is that church? What does
Right
that
now-
look like as far as numbers and
right now
leadership?
we've been 14 years as a church. We have 22 families that we consider, or they consider themselves part of the church. And we have studied with many of them through establishing the church, which is the general idea or plan of discipleship. And we have studied many of the lessons together, and it's been a growing together with them for us. You know, we've gone through difficulties in our family and in their families, and God has used several opportunities to put us in need of Him. And right now, we meet as a church in a little kindergarten facility, preschool.
Yeah, preschool.
And would you like to add something about that? But that's how we are. And 6 years ago, as a church, and along with FBC, we started working with Quechua pastors, and God has used that tremendously. You know, sometimes at church, it goes to a period of a pause, or they're not as eager to learn.
Yeah.
But God used that time to go with the Quechua pastors, who was the first largest indigenous group in Ecuador. And with the organization that we worked with, they said a group of pastors that represent about 800 churches between them. And they reached us because this organization wanted to teach something. They wanted to do some sort of activity. They didn't know about what we taught. They knew my father-in-law.
God knew.
Of course. And the leaders reached to us for some sort of training for the pastors.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, they wanted whatever. But God opened up that door for us, and it was really a tremendous opportunity to share from the beginning with these pastors.
Yeah.
The hope that we have in Christ.
And I want to elaborate a little bit on that. And Jim, you can chime in too. The idea that you, Juan, are working with local people in your town, Cuenca, and working on just establishing that church that's now up to 22 families. On top of that, then you are taking that and carrying out this, getting outside of your own walls, getting outside of just your area to, again, spread the gospel to a people group who are just in desperate need of hearing Christ. The Quechua tribe, and you said that they have 800 churches that this organization is a part of.
Well,
that
that's
you
an
are
estimate.
There's
Yeah.
an estimate.
There's more than 2 million Quechua in Ecuador,
Yes, so the
Yes.
people group, there's a
It's a big
and they
group.
all
big group
consider
of people.
themselves evangelicals or Christians.
Okay.
But they have what we were studying this weekend, a corrupted gospel or a distorted gospel. And so coming in with the lessons has really given them a clear foundation to continue edifying that church. The pastors he works with, it's about 800 churches, but there's more.
And I think something important to know is that God was working in our church in order to be part of this.
Yeah.
Because the ladies have been a great help, and Tirsa has been working with them, just sharing, growing with them together, and God has used many of the ladies to be part of serving in the church, and also kind of like stepping a little bit back and growing and giving the men opportunities to do what they have been called to do. Yeah. So
Share a little bit about how the church in Cuenca has this will be pre-COVID now, but the church in Cuenca was getting involved with the work to the Quechua.
yes.
Yeah,
yes,
that
of
because
course.
that's speaking to the overflow of what
Yeah,
we're talking about
exactly.
here.
Yeah, I
So
know.
here we got you guys overflowing from our global family to this church in Cuenca, which is now overflowing to the Quechua. But it's not just you
Yeah, it's
or even you guys with the Quechua, but it is your church. So tell us a little bit about how the church in Cuenca has gotten involved and behind the work with the Quechua.
right now. Every weekend we are having some sort of a sale to raise money for missions that we call, and we ask the members to participate on that, and they love it. They love it, and we have gone to visit some of the churches with them, and
So
they're
some
part of it.
people from your church have gone with you.
Yeah,
That's an important thing to.
Some have come with me, or they
yeah.
just help with the money in order for us to help with the cost.
Yeah, helping to pay your gas to get
Yes,
there and back, or lodging while you're helping.
Yes.
really
the
having
churches
that
involved.
ownership
Yeah.
of this idea of
Right.
outreach within your own culture, within your own country,
Yes.
essentially.
Yeah, and one thing we have seen is our church, because it started with sound doctrine since the beginning, they really value that. They are very wary, or they come from other churches that have given false gospels or false teaching, and so they really value the sound doctrine. They value systematic teaching. They value the truth, and they are so convinced or so convicted by this message of grace, and they want to share it with others. So maybe they can't go as a missionary to the Quechuas or go when Juan teaches, but they can sell chips on a Sunday to raise money for it. Or maybe some of the men, they're not gifted as teachers, but they can drive the car so Juan can rest, and so he can teach when he gets there, and they drive him home. And so the Lord is using the local body in Cuenca to support that work, not only financially, but even I would say like the attitude about it. It's not Juan does this, it's we do this.
Yeah. And you mentioned driving. I've been there to visit you guys. And Ecuador is not a big country, but man, let me tell you, those roads, and it's challenging to go from one city to the next. And you're traveling hours at a time to go all around the entire country to meet up with these Quechua people. So there is an effort that is going into that. And I'm glad that the church is supporting that, because they have to raise you up and support you and encourage you and pray for you to be able to allow you that opportunity to go share. And so that's really cool that your local body has that heart to be able to just say, yes, Juan, we value the teaching. We want you to go do that. How often are you traveling right now?
Well, we stopped when COVID started,
Sure.
And Lord willing, at the middle of of November, we're going to have a meeting with them, and and kind of like go from there to see when we do it again.
What so have you been in communication with anybody without traveling?
I have one call a week with one of the pastors, because they are so into the study, and it's been a blessing for me to work with them and see these hungry hearts. But it's also been a blessing for them and them to their churches. And there's been opposition, of course, and there's pastors or there's leaders that they have gotten the message, and the rest of the church is like, what's this new message that you're carrying? That like they are like rejecting, But it takes time, and it's something that God uses first in us to make it real. And I think this COVID problem, or what God allowed it to happen, has given them a lot of opportunities to stand on the truth and share that.
Share one example of a light bulb moment, something where you said that there's sometimes opposition, or they're not fully accustomed to the teaching of grace. What are some of the just one example of an opposition that you've seen that you've had to go up against with the
pre-COVID?
Yeah.
For example, this is the main one. The leaders that contacted us, they don't want to study. So in the organization that they have, it's the leaders of this organization command this group of pastors in certain region, and because they haven't studied, because they just wanted to do something like sort of activity, they didn't support the study. But because of the big group that we work with, and that they're eager to learn, they push them. They kind of push them to do what this group wants.
Yeah.
We want to study with Juan. We wanted to study the lessons. We wanted to study. We want to keep studying. So they ask for that. So we're going to see what's going to happen now. But that's one thing.
Just almost the need to overcome the potential pride or the lack of desire to grow and to know God more.
And that's in the big picture, but also inside their churches, they have opposition with sometimes deacons or elders that they don't see the same thing, or they haven't studied, and they want to do it in the way that they have been doing it for years.
Juan is mentioning studies. So, Jim, these are materials that FBC has shared, and they've been translated into different languages around the world. Just give us a quick snapshot of what these lessons, what these teachings are all about that Juan's referring to.
Yeah, so he mentioned the creation of Christ lessons, and also there are the knowing God lessons, and that helps to lay a foundation on just getting to know God, his big purpose and plan throughout history, and in terms of engagement with a lost human race, and then also saving them in his plan. So that's where we begin, because that lays a really, really good foundation. And that foundation needs to be laid in order to understand the heart of God, because the heart of God is the same from Genesis to Revelation, doesn't change. And so getting that foundation in place helps you to better understand the Gospels, the coming of the deliverer. Why do we need a deliverer? You got to have the foundation of the Old Testament laid. So it lays a foundation for the Gospels, and then the fulfillment of God's plan in Christ. And then what is the result of that plan that's more laid out in the epistles and other, the rest of the New Testament writings. So yeah, it's progressive, it's systematic, and it has a specific, beginning point, starting point, and it moves to an end. God didn't put together the Bible the way he did on accident. God doesn't do anything on accident.
Right. And it points to where God is the one who's doing it all. It is through him, not through us.
Right.
And so there's a complete 100% message of grace.
That's right.
And so for for many people that haven't been fully exposed to grace, studies like that are going to be eye-opening, right? And so I'm sure you have had moments, even when people in your own congregation, where you've seen growth happen. You've seen, these times where like, oh, that's what this scripture passage means.
Or just be born again, because so many times people are in church, they've never heard the true gospel. They've never been born again. They've never had that new birth. And we see it all the time. We work with people that have been Christians for years and years. I mean, we have a lady in our church who, she used to teach on the radio, like on the Christian radio in our city. She came to our church and she was born again.
Wow.
And I'm talking in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, she was teaching the Bible on the radio.
Yeah.
So just having that foundation and the message of grace.
And you got the picture, because the teaching that they have had was like, in order how you behave, it's that you are
Spiritual.
Yeah.
So it's how much things you do that you are a better Christian or a Christian. And if you don't do those things, then
Very works-based.
then
And
you lose
appearance-driven.
your salvation, but they have never been saved.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
and that happens in the same thing with the pastors. I had pastors that were pastors for 40 years and they just became saved.
It's so interesting to hear that this is Ecuador we're talking about. I mean, there's so many churches around just our own community, our own country, where there's this added layer to the gospel of works or appearance or performing that, the results and the implications of that are devastating. There can be guilt, there can be pride, there can be anxiety, there can be frustration, there's so many things that are the results of an impure gospel.
Yeah.
And you didn't really touch on that over the weekend, but I'm curious if what thoughts you have of why is this so important to teach this.
Well, we talked about it a little bit yesterday in some of our meetings, but it says in Colossians that Christ is our life, and Christ in us the hope of glory. And if we don't know Christ personally and have that personal relationship with Him, we're able to rest in and rejoice in what He's done for us. Then it's based on what we do. And whenever things are based on what we do, I mean, when it's up to me, I'm going to be stressed out. I'm going to be worried. I'm going to be fearful. I'm going to be anxious. And I mean, we all get that. We all understand that. And that's why, the focus on the finished work of Christ is so important, and His grace and all that He's done for us, and Christ who is our life, Christ in us, the hope of glory. Because then we're finding the fulfillment and the contentment and the satisfaction for things that we go through in life outside of ourselves. And that's so important that we're finding that in the person of Christ. We're not trying to satisfy all these things inwardly, because when we try to do it inwardly, we will fail.
Yeah.
And we'll end up in a mess.
Yeah. And again, that's the heart of our missions program,
Yeah, exactly.
to partner with people around the world to share this message.
And that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's what these guys are doing in Cuenca and their church, with the individual, people, the dads, the moms, the kids, and in the church in Cuenca, and then also, up the road with these with the Quichua pastors. So we're just happy to be, partnered, and God's given us the opportunity to be partnered together.
Yeah. Well, let me just turn the last segment of our conversation to our local body here, Fellowship Bible Church. This podcast it's called Fellowship Family. So we speak directly to people here at Fellowship Bible Church in Winchester, Virginia. So Tirsa, I'll go to you first, because you're like, you almost feel like you're a member here because you've been coming so often, and you've been affiliated with Fellowship. What can you share with those of us here at FBC of the partnership that you sense from us, and how there's this, just almost this dual kind of role of how you feel that support from FBC here?
Well, I mean, for me personally, it's like coming home to extended family, because I did grow up with Tim. I grew up, Jim used to come to mission trips where we lived, So for me, it's like visiting a very, very loved aunt or uncle, or, coming back and seeing familiar faces, and now bringing my own children to FBC and sharing that with them. My daughter Tallulah on Sunday said, "Mommy, I love church. I'm going to talk to everybody," because on Saturday she had been a little shy. So for me personally, just given my history with FBC and now getting to come back as a partner, as a missionary, I know I don't look like it, but I technically am one.
Sure.
It's really encouraging, and I think that it speaks to what the Lord does, because what the Lord does endures. What the Lord does, it lasts forever. And not only positionally are we all forever going to be together, but just this relationship that we have with FBC. I mean, Mark Carey got my graduation announcement when I graduated from high school. There's just so many things that we have already shared as far as life stages, and then now that we are sharing as co-workers in the Lord. And so it really speaks to that sense of extended family, I think.
Juan, how can our church continue to support you? I mean, prayer is one thing. So what are some of the things going on currently right now that we can specifically pray for?
Well, please pray for us to trust the Lord to raise our children in His love, and also to love our families over there in Cuenca, where they are at, because it's sometimes it's lonely, and even though we are young and we deal with families that are a lot older than us, but spiritually they are like kids, and so we would we long for a relationship of other mature people that we can support each other and take care of what God is doing there. So pray for the maturity of our church as we keep sharing there.
That's good. And with the growth of technology, we can connect a lot easier, a lot quicker.
Right now I'm recording every lesson and putting it up on YouTube and on Facebook to have kind of like what we have studied or the material that we have, but into a digital library. So my hope, or I don't know what God's going to use it for, but it's to have a material for others to review and have it available to teach others too.
That's great. And that's going to be in Spanish.
It's in Spanish.
So any Spanish speaking
I can give it in English, but I'll have to live
most of the
here.
people that watch our YouTube channel are in Mexico.
Sure.
They're not even in
Well, that's what I'm saying. Again, just the global community being able to have the depth of teaching that Juan is giving, to go to Mexico, to go to any other, it can come here to Winchester, to people that speak Spanish in Winchester, so what the work that you're doing goes well beyond just your local area. So that's awesome. There's that kind of spread of the gospel that is just beyond what you think. So that's
God. God's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. This is our Global Church Week, and just to continue to encourage our own local body to say, yes, we want to be able to overflow and share love with you guys. So you're a part of that. And so I hope you feel that as well. Our podcasts, find us anywhere. You can communicate, share your thoughts, share your notes, share your love to the Delgados and everybody else who we support in our missions program. So Jim, Juan, Tirsa, thanks so much for being a part of this.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you guys for watching and listening. And until we chat again, let's let Christ be the focus of our lives each and every day.